Metro, want to say welcome all of you to this special edition of Focus on Liberia. Our guest tonight is Mr. Alaric Tokpa. Professor Tokpa, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Thank you very much. I'm delighted to be here.
We are so excited to have you. And tonight we're going to be speaking or discussing about this politician and political scientist. Also, we're going to be discussing about the progressives for which he's a part. And most importantly, we're going to be discussing some current issues that are trending. Invite a friend and enjoy the broadcast. Take part. We're going to be posting our numbers later for you to call in to have this discussion with Professor Alaric Tokpa. Once again, welcome to all our viewers across the globe. This is a special edition of Focus on Liberia, and we are glad to have Mr. Tokpa, who's visiting us right here in the United States. By way of introduction, Alaric Tokpa is the founding chair of the New Deal movement, the only political party that was founded under the reign of Charles Taylor, that's President Charles Taylor. Currently, he's the head of the National Democratic Coalition, Liberia's Social Democratic Party. Educated in Liberia, Ghana, and the United States, Alaric is a lecturer of political science and a farmer. As an educator, he boldly and fearlessly blends the academic and the political. He's one of the leaders in the Liberian progressive community who is widely respected and admired by students, the youth, and the grassroots. Alaric is among former national student leaders who were sentenced to firing squad under the military dictatorship of President Samuel Doe in January 1982, but acquitted. He was also among 6 leaders or student leaders that were sent to the maximum prison of Bele Yela in 1985. Alaric Tokpa was born on August 2, 1958, onto the union of Mr. Daniel Tokpa and Mrs. Janga Jowolo Tokpa. He's married to Annie Musu Tokpa with children in Liberia and the United States. He hails from the Bele district in Bapulu County, Liberia, West Africa. We should note that Mr. Tokpa is a former vice presidential candidate and also a former senatorial candidate for Bapulu County. Once again, welcome to Focus on Liberia, Prof. Tokpa.
Thank you very much.
And welcome to the United States. How's your stay been? How's Liberia?
Not so exciting to talk about.
You're going to get more to that as the discussion goes along. But let's start tonight. You say it's not so exciting. You're gonna give us more. But let's start with the man Alaric Tokpa. When I was in high school, I saw you on TV and also in the newspaper as Secretary General of LINSU. So let's start with talking about your career, your entire political career, starting with your student activism and also moving on to being the chairman of the political science department of the University of Liberia. Let's give us briefly, for those of us who don't know Alaric Tokpa, that will serve as a brief introduction coming from your student activism to being chair of the political science department.
Firstly, allow me to thank you for the invitation and allow me to thank the viewers who have abandoned their important schedules to participate in this important discussion, as you have put it, on the progressives in Liberia today. My political career started when I was a very young man. While at the Martin Nimpo Junior High School, I became a part of the All People's Freedom Alliance, APFA. APFA joined, or at least merged with Moja in 1980 March at the Congress of Moja at the City Hall. We published a magazine in Liberia that was the leading educational magazine for progressives and our people, called the Afafanga. And the way in which we explain the situation of our people to Liberia was that in Liberia, foreign companies steal wealth, big shots enjoy, and poor people suffer. When I entered Tokpa High School, I was privileged to be considered for the chairmanship of the Student Uhuru Movement. That is the Student Freedom Movement. That is important because that is where my political career started to gain focus. While I was in Dakar, Senegal, in a conference of the Council for the Development of Social Science Research in Africa, CODESRIA, I was selected by my colleagues as president of the Tokpa High School Alumni Association. When I graduated from the University of Liberia, I was a teaching assistant. But fortunately, I'm one of those who got scholarship for the university based on my entrance result. It was a government scholarship. And I signed 2 contracts to work for the university through the Academic Affairs, Office of the President for Academic Affairs. Even though when I came from Belela jail, I was told that I had been dismissed as teaching assistant. And they said to me in a letter of dismissal that there was no reason why they were dismissing me. I think they said exactly that there was no political reason why they were dismissing me. So I went to the University of Ghana. I read a Master of Philosophy in Political Science. When news of the war broke up in 1989, I was writing my Master of Philosophy thesis. And I decided that I will not pursue further studies. I was going right back to Liberia. My professors convened a meeting on me and tried to encourage me to stay and further my career. But I argued that going to Liberia, I was not going to the Atlantic Ocean or Wollogizi Mountain. I was going to human beings. If the human beings that I adore, that I love, were being killed, I had to go and participate in the process of stopping the killing machine. So I first came to Liberia in 1990, December 23rd, and left on January 4th because at the time I'm teaching as a graduate teaching assistant at the University of Ghana. I'm lecturing at the Ghana Institute of Journalism, and I was seconded to the Military Academy and Training School in Ghana, where I lecture political education. So some of the soldiers that came to Liberia from Ghana were my students. I come back to Liberia eventually in 1992, and I joined the political science department. That was the interim administration headed by Dr. Amos Sawyer. I was asked to head a department, which I did. And I don't like to personalize, but I believe that I brought some credibility to the department. And most of my students that I graduated are testimony to that in Liberia, in the United States, Europe, and other parts of the world. When the election was happening in South Africa for Mandela, I was invited because there was a possibility for me to join the Congress in Namibia to participate in the observation of the elections in Namibia for Sam Joma. That did not happen because I was writing my exams at the time. When I came from South Africa, I was invited to the United States by the United States government, along with some other young Africans at the time. I returned and continued to head the department. of political science. So I also have had so many consultancies with NGOs like Oxfam America, the UNDP, two consultancies that really gave me the opportunity to understand the flow of money in Liberia during the immediate post-war period. I've consulted with NGOs, CSOs, I've provided training for many CSOs and NGOs in Liberia and policy advisors to some NGOs and CSOs in Liberia. I was civic education administrator in the training of the new army. And from your defense minister to your chief of staff, the training commandant, the commanding general, they were all my students. I'm a farmer. And that gives me a lot of knowledge, and I'm proud to be, because it helps me to relate to ordinary people on a daily basis. Because whether I'm on a farm or in that locality or in Moria town, we have telephone exchanges and I'm aware of what is going down. Recently, I'm appointed as the regional coordinator of the Village Schools for the Bible, which is located in Minnesota in the United States of America. And I'm based in Liberia, but eventually the school intends to spread in West Africa.
Okay.
Basically, this is where I am. I've been engaged in other kinds of activities, personal research. Oh yes, indeed, I work with the British All-Party Parliamentary Group in London to collect some data and do some research on Liberia. I work as director of research for the PhDI. The PhDI is Public Health and Development Institute, yes.
Okay.
We involve in preventive health services and what have you.
You stated that you taught, I think, twice in the military academy. Do you have any military training?
Not to be discussed.
Good. You also ran as a vice presidential candidate for the New Deal movement and also senator for Bapolo district. Talk briefly your experience running for those political offices, and you were not successful. Any reason why?
As you know, the New Deal movement was the most popular political organization in Liberia under Charles Taylor in terms of opposition politics. The New Deal movement was organized between 1999 and 2000. It is a social democratic party. If free and fair elections have been held under Charles Taylor, I can assure you that history will be different because the New Deal movement will have taken power. Yes, I did run in Bapolo County first in 2011 as representative for District 2. I was in the United States then when I was being encouraged by colleagues at home and citizens of Bapolo to go back and run, that they needed a better leader for the county in the House. There were two attitudes towards my intervention in politics at the time at the national level. Some people said that since I took a longer period of my lifetime growing up in Monrovia, I should run somewhere in Monrovia. And I decided that I would go where the tax was hardest. I ran against the incumbent along with other candidates. I think I campaigned for about 1.5 to 2 months. Bapolo is a very difficult terrain. The walking distances are very long. Most of the areas are not accessible by vehicle, by motor vehicle. I came second place. But it is in the period when the government of Liberia decided and they persuaded the Supreme Court to agree with the executive branch of government's decision that it was important to violate the Constitution. This allow to have the first round of elections, because there should have been a second round of elections where the simple majority was not necessarily the basis for the winning of elections. But when I came second round, by right, I should have run with the person that came first round.
Right.
I'm coming second round at a time that I'm lack of money. I'm not able to cover the entire district. I'm coming second round at a time that I do not even have the means to transport and pay my voters to cover the elections in many areas, to go to the voting booths and represent me in those areas. So I remain grateful to the people of Bapulu County because they did provide a possibility that at least I could have served them if the government of Liberia had not decided to violate our constitution. I did run for the vice.
Before you go to the other one of the criticisms against you at that time was that the people of Bapulu did not know you. You were more popular in Monrovia, and especially before the war than that time when you ran in Bapulu.
That is partly correct. That is correct. And what my opponents did was that they had gone to Bapulu County and informed the people of Bapulu that I was not a Bele man. I heard rumors that I was from the Southeast and that I was a crewman. That had to be clarified by my campaign committee over a long period of time. Then having been taken away from Bapulu County when I was very, very young and brought to Morota where I grew up, basically, the Kwa language, the Bele language, being a little more complex, complicated, and difficult, my worry was that our people will have more doubts if I had not been able to speak Bele. But I do know that I did force myself in Moreta over time to go around Bele people and to learn the Bele language as much as possible. That saved me. Because we had gone to one rally in Bele when I went for the second time to clarify some of the issues that were not a Bele man. And when I spoke Bele, the women put bucket down, put money inside, the money filled the bucket. So it was a difficult decision I took, but we as progressives, we do not follow the path of least resistance. We go where the task is difficult. I have passion for serving those who are most deprived. Most of the development in Liberia is concentrated in Monrovia town or other urban centers. It was my decision that I would take my education to my people, work with them, and demonstrate to them that in spite of high schooling, we are all the same, we are human beings. We have the same needs and the same feelings. And this is the way we progressives think.
Okay, let's talk about your campaign run.
My what?
The vice presidential candidate.
If you will allow me, we can then talk about the way in which popular movements rise and fall a mass attitude in politics.
Okay.
It seems to me, and this is my analysis of the period, when the interests of the masses coincide with the political activity of a particular agency, that agency becomes very popular. It may be a personality, it may be an institution, it may be an organization, it may be a party. But over time, when there's misalignment between the interests of the masses and that agency, the probability is high that the popularity of that agency can decline. We have seen this in history many times. I think this is what happened to the New Deal movement.
Okay.
At the same time, you can be sure that there are many tick that bite in elections. There are places which we consider our strongholds.
Right.
We're not convinced that the counting of the ballots gave us 0 votes in those areas.
You were talking about, you are hinting about irregularities.
Which irregularity?
When you said the counting of the ballots gave you no votes in areas you believe you are strongholds, are you talking about?
That was the experience of the New Deal movement in 2005.
Okay.
And Dr. K and myself discussed that extensively, and it brought into credibility in our minds the election results. But in circumstances like those, when the masses have wasted so much energy to vote, when you bring up issues that it seems to be detracting from the trust of the time, they may suggest that, oh, you know, these people, they don't like democracy, or they can accommodate failure and what have you, and this and that. We decided to just swallow that and move on.
Right. You consistently use the word masses. I know it's a word that we all use that's been overused in Liberia. Who are the masses?
The underserved people, the poor people, the majority who are deprived, the ones who don't have housing, the ones who cannot even pay school fees for their children, the ones who have difficulty when there's health crisis, the ones, in fact, who don't have any possibility of ensuring that their health is well maintained, the ones who are hungry, the destitute, the ones who are homeless or don't have good homes in which to live, the ones who are unemployed or who are unemployed, and the ones who are looking for possibility for the state to intervene in their lives, who are neglected in society, the marginalized. And this can be variously described. We're talking about ordinary people who are always in the majority. And Liberia is largely divided between rich and poor. Most of our people are poor. They are the masses.
Do the masses or come together to select someone to advocate for them, or people like you will just rise up and say, I'm going to do this for the masses? How do these advocates come about to plead for the masses? Because sometimes you see the same masses you're talking about are being taken advantage of and used by people to get to power. And when they get to power, they forget these masses. So how do people come to the point of being the mouthpiece for the masses?
In both ways, as you suggested. You may decide, because you have passion and love for human beings, to work hard, organize yourself to represent their interests. Or the people may select you as their leader. So it can happen in both ways. We are aware that there are those who take advantage of our people, become leaders in the process, and abandon the interests of our people, such that the discourse, the rhetoric that they espouse when they seek election from the masses or support from the masses is betrayed when they get the power. Progressives are not like that, because we believe that theory must be taken into practice. We are not very concerned about the ability of one to articulate the interests of the masses. What we're concerned about most is the ability of one to carry those theories into practice. And that is our concern.
You were once a member of the Liberian People's Party, am I correct?
You are very correct.
How is the Liberian People's Party now? What is their relationship with the New Deal movement? Did the New Deal movement break out of the Liberian People's Party, or was that a breakaway group, or how has it come to metamorphosed into other parties like the New Deal?
We did break away.
Okay.
But over time, we did find a way to get back to the Liberian People's Party and also the United People's Party, and which we thought had progressive tendencies, so that the progressives can come together. We are not encouraged by the way in which the discussions were accommodated by those parties. And so we continue to exist. At the moment, the New Deal movement is in coalition with the Free Democratic Party and other structures, national structures. And of course, I'm the head of the National Democratic Party.
You call that a social democratic party. What is that? And what can you explain about social democratic party?
A party must have a clearly articulated ideology. Briefly stated, we are interested in political freedom and economic justice. We are convinced that when the economy is good, the politics is good. When the economy is bad, the politics is bad.
And a lot of people don't realize the connection of the economy to politics. We sometimes try to separate them. But most of these systems are actually economic systems.
The subject matters were historically compartmentalized, but that is deceptive. The political structure, the philosophical principles, the religious and judicial establishments, they all can have impact on the economy. But eventually, the economy determines the orientation of all of those institutions. Yeah.
I agree. As a former student leader, in Linsu, and let's look at student activism today. Have things drifted, from the time you were student leader to now, or things continue to be the same? How do you see student activism today in Liberia?
Student leadership is transitory.
Okay.
So it is not a permanent fixture in which you expect the same behavior pattern from year to year, from decade to decade. I think in our time, there were lesser and lesser factions. But in this period, it looks like there are competing demands on the attention, the cooperation and solidarity of students. And since the politics has been monetized, there is a tendency for external forces to infiltrate the student movement and create some cleavages.
That has always happened.
Meanwhile, what I can say, therefore, is that the dominant tendency in the student movement is built around the growing revolutionary intelligentsia. So I think the student movement today is a very great one, which I respect very much. They have means of propaganda that we do not have. Their activities are being televised. Social media is big. We didn't have that luxury. We didn't have the telephone. As leaders of the student movement, when we were in difficult times, we had to run away from the enemy in order to survive and struggle. But our coordination may not have been perfect. It was effective largely. So we lost comrades in the process. And we mourn them always in our hearts. But one cannot easily compare the student movement of the last century to this century as if it is an institutional establishment that must exhibit similar features all the time. What I'm convinced about is that the student movement of today is functioning in ways that are commendable.
You talk about external forces infiltrating the students. I was saying this has always happened, where we saw, for example, the Student Unification Party being aligned with the Liberian People's Party, and another party, the Student Integration Movement, being aligned with the United People's Party. So external factors have always played a role in student activism.
You are partly correct. But in matters of principle, the student movement as a corporate entity does not pay allegiance to any political institution or government. Any student leader or student activist or progressive student or woman has a constitutional right and has the right, in fact, to allow other political party of their choice. The reason why it seems as if the student movement aligns with particular political entities is because the student movement is on a compelling obligation by the constitution of LINSU, for example, or the Student Unification Party, to allow any position that is correct and that is in the interest of the people of the country. It would therefore appear as if, by adopting positions that align or that coincide with institutional establishment that are progressive, and I will not shy away from saying that the student movement in our time and now is largely a progressive one. The impression is provided that the student movement is aligned with particular political organization on the national scene. I disagree with that. Because in our time, and like today, we're saying we cannot be teleguided. And I, for example, even the present chairman of the Student Unification Party, I do not even know him. I talked to him on telephone when he was involved in an accident. But I do not even know him. I cannot recognize him. He stands in front of me. You understand me? But I know there are people who try their best to infiltrate the student movement, to control it, to divide it, and to root it. That is against the requirements for the progress of our country. And that is against the requirements for the democratization of Liberia.
From time to time, we see there's much emphasis paid on national politics at the expense of what really the students need. For instance, at the campus of the University of Liberia, there are other issues, learning resources, instructional materials, and all those things are issues that students confront every day. We don't see much riot or noise made about those things except for national issues. And during your days, those things were the same. Have the student priorities been misplaced from time to time?
I do not think so. Firstly, there's no tension between the two. Participation in national politics, and of course, paying attention to your lesson. Both of them reinforce each other. I think we are operating in a society in which people want the students to graduate and become service workers for the system. But the system is unacceptable. It is a decadent system. It is an undemocratic system. It is an authoritarian system. So the students have a responsibility to change our system firstly. I do agree with you that there is need for students to pay attention to their lesson because that is what we did when we were in school. But we did not ignore the need to participate in the popular intervention of our people for the improvement of our society. When there was no political party in existence in Liberia during the reign of the one-party state, for example, the all-powerful Student Unification Party, of which I became General Secretary, was present. In fact, was very instrumental in the coming of Moja, the movement for justice in Africa, which gave birth to LPP that you are talking about. The Student Unification Party was very instrumental in giving accommodation to PAL, the Progressive Alliance of Liberia of the late of blessed memory Bacchus Matthews, which gave birth to UPP, eventually PPP and then UPP. So it is not a requirement that students should abandon the interest of their people only to participate in improved performance in their lessons, because,
No, besides that, I want to have, let's say, a library on campus, or a student resource center, or if the instructions, if students are not getting what they're supposed to get, academic-wise, I don't see much, I don't hear much noise about that.
Well, in our time, we had a modern bookstore. We had a good library. That is true. These days, what is happening are not in the classroom at the moment. It seems to me that lecturers are getting materials and providing them through, as I understand, photocopiers and other kinds of ways to students. that needs to be improved. But the decision to build a library, the decision to build a learning resource center and what have you and that is part of the responsibility of the administration of the university.
Right. The students
of course, but students can also demand those.
Right.
Bear in mind the fact that we have 14 years of civil war. And the new generation has no idea of what the University of Liberia was before.
Right.
Bear in mind the fact that before that, we had about 10 years of military rule. And by 1984, the university began to deteriorate after the invasion of the university and the imposition of various regulations on our university in August 1984. So the state has not paid attention to the university since then. Even the interim administrations of the 90s did not pay attention to the university. The transitional government from 2003 to 2005 did not pay attention to the university. The post-war government that received so much money did not pay attention to the development of the university. Human beings are products partly of their environment.
Yeah.
The students are related to what they saw, what they encountered. But people like us who have an idea of what was,
right,
are being denied the possibility of going back to the university, which demonstrates to you that education is a political fact.
That is sad. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are just joining us, this is Focus on Liberia. Our guest is Professor Alaric Tokpa. We are discussing his career, of course, the progressive, and also we're going to dive in current issues. Let's go to the progressives. We have, you identify yourself as a progressive. Briefly discuss with me in few sentences the history of the progressive movement. Who are the progressives?
And this is something that is hard for me to do in 2 sentences.
All right. Okay.
If you don't mind.
Let's see if we can do 5.
Fundamentally, progressives are people who believe in social democratic change, who believe in economic justice, who believe in the need for improvement in health, education, who believe in the need for governments to address the food crisis, who believe that human beings are human beings and they should have the right to better housing and better employment possibilities. For me, progressivism is identity, it is also community, and it is continuity. So when you're talking about the progressives, you're talking about the dead, our dead heroes. When you're talking about progressives, you're talking about those of us who do exist today and believe that it is possible for government to become better and for society to become better. And we draw our inspiration from the comrades whose lives were lost in the struggle. When you're talking about progressives, you're also talking about unborn generations. So we have the dead, the living, and the unborn. And we are encouraged to struggle on and on because the difficulty we are seeing, we do not want our grandchildren or great-grandchildren to see them. So the progressives are like the soul of a society, that community of people that guarantee the betterment and the improvement of society for as long as forever.
Do you have ex-progressive, people that are progressive before and are no longer progressive? Maybe they fell off.
We can look at the matter in 2 ways.
Okay.
Number one can articulate progressive theory and be considered a progressive and go into practicing that theory and be considered a progressive.
Okay.
But if one ceases to be on the side of the popular masses, if one does not allow the sounding but critical voices from the people, I do not think they should be honored with that respect of being characterized as a progressive.
One second. We have a caller on the line. 1 second. Caller, Just hold on 1 second. Let our guest complete his thought.
Okay.
Go ahead, Prof. Tokpa.
So you see, the progressives are people who like human beings and who believe there is no basic difference between human beings. That everybody have the same basic needs. They are devoted to ensuring that the obvious is recognized by administrations after administrations. That we need water, we need housing, we need food, we need good clothing, we need jobs, and we need to send our children to school. We need good health.
Yeah.
We want freedom from ignorance, disease, and poverty, as in the words of President Talbot, and want to ensure that our society become better and be respected in the international community as well.
All right. Call out your name and where you're calling from.
My name is Dr. Nya. I'm calling from Iowa. And I've been following the show, so I just decided to give in my contribution.
Please go ahead, Dr. Nya.
First of all, Professor Tokpa, I just want to tell you, thank you for coming up on the show. I know Professor Alaric Tokpa, when he and I used to work for the DACO International Answers Arrow, and he was a great individual, still a great individual. I'm excited that he's in Liberia and is able to come on today to give some education about things that are happening during the progressive. Now, my opinion is that there are some challenges that I feel that the progressives they have. And also, there are some challenges we as young leaders today we have. But time changes. For instance, when the progressive came, there were things that they were bringing out and saying and going after that they felt that they were good for the country. And I don't think it was bad. But what has changed now, in many of the suggestions and their actions, I want to strongly believe, you can disagree with me, is technology. During the time of the progressive, we didn't have technology. For instance, at the University of Liberia, I graduated from the University of Liberia. When I was at the University of Liberia, at that time, the university had gone so bad. We had to stand online. We had to sit on breaks. Our instructors were giving up pamphlets and handouts. You know, it was so pathetic. But today, other universities around the world, they are using computers. When the computer comes to Liberia, it was between 99 to 2000, I mean, like the old model computer.
Right.
Today, even 60% of our populations are not computer literate.
Okay.
So look at what the progressive has done. I would not want to look at my level. I would not want to judge them on their level of contributions to the country or what they have done or what they have not done. But one thing I want to register here is the issue of Gabriel Bacchus Matthew. What am I saying? I'm going towards the June 7 protest.
Okay.
It is my opinion. Well, the late Gabriel Bacchus Matthew went to Liberia. He served in many positions. He served as the Minister of Foreign Affairs, and he served in the Dole government and also in the Amos Soil government during the interim government time. What did Gabriel Bacchus Matthew do? Gabriel Bacchus Matthew said because the rice prices change in the country,
Right.
Liberians should come on the street and demonstrate. Why am I using those specific, statement for Gabriel Bacchus Matthew? They didn't motivate the people. They were using their own political,
Right. So,
own political rhetoric.
so Emmanuel, if you can wrap up.
Yeah, so in short, the June 7 protest is not going to be in the interest of the country.
All right.
Let us dialogue with the government. Let us hold them accountable. Let us not put our people on the street. want to know his position on the June 7th protests that are going to be coming up, because our country.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And we'll come to the June 7th protests. These are the current issues that we want to discuss. There's another column. So, you mentioned Bikers Mafia, so we'll come to that. Prof. Tokpa, what I want you to discuss now, before we'll come to the June 7th protest, and you will give your opinion on the June 7th protest. But let's talk about the legacy of the progressives. John Eastman was calling. John, just hold on one second. Talk to me, Prof. Tokpa, about the legacy of the progressive and where did they go wrong?
Well, we started a struggle. We intensified the struggle for the democratization of Liberia. It was based on our efforts that it is possible today for the Liberian people to have decision-making power in electoral processes. Most elections in Liberia are not necessarily free and fair, but in general, at least, the people know that they have the power to elect their own leaders. Where we are now, the election of our leaders is one thing, but the performance of our leaders is another thing altogether. So the masses are stepping into history to say it is true that we elect you, but we require you to be effective and efficient. We have contributed. We have made it possible for popular intervention in politics to occur in Liberia. It is through our hard work that Ellen Johnson Sirleaf became the first president, the female president of Africa that was elected. It is through our hard work that even George Weah is president of Liberia today. We had a one-party dominant state. For those who are saying that our intervention was negative, are they suggesting that a particular group of people have the right in Liberian society to lead, are entitled to lead, while the others are neglected? Are they saying a particular group of people in Liberia have the right to live in affluence, to benefit from government and national resources, while the others are neglected? Are they saying that some have the right to government jobs, while others do not? Are they saying
our phones are ringing off the hook, so let me bring in a caller to interject. Caller, your name and where you calling from?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Comrade Alaric Tokpa, I'm glad to hear you talking again. This is from a long time ago. This is one man who asked you to deliver a letter to his father in Ethiopia many, many moons ago. Anyway, my question to you is...
Your name first and where you calling from?
My name is Jimmy Eastman.
Okay, Jimmy Eastman, your question or comment?
Yeah, we hear a lot of good talk when they say what people want to do. But in project management, we found out that execution is the problem for most projects. Yeah. So what we hear a lot is the condemnation of other people. But we don't hear very many people emphasizing virtue and honesty. So my question is, what does the professor recommend to curb the systemic culture of corruption in the country when virtue is not being professed and taught? And I'll take my answer on the line.
Thank you so much. Talk about that's about virtue. Your response.
Are you the Jimmy Eastman that I know?
That's him.
Jimmy.
He's off the air. Yeah, he's taking it off the air.
Jimmy was my good friend at the University of Liberia. And we had a lot of debates, you know. So he's talking about execution, which is correct. Because one may have very good policies on the books, but implementation becomes a problem.
Yeah.
And that is one of the Liberian situation that we have to resolve. In terms of virtue, ethics, and what have you, there are departments at the University of Liberia, for example, that teach a lot of good behavior patterns. But those who are in administration have to be able to make good on their promises. When you swear to defend our Constitution, You swear to live right by our people. You swear to serve our people. But the arrogance and big shotism is too much in Liberia. I think it is important for us to reform ourselves and be better servants. And just for me, the key is to recognize that firstly, we are human beings. And for those of us who are Christians or radical Christians, we are one in the body of Christ, from dust to dust, ashes to ashes. Why is it that some people should derive pleasure from the suffering of others as if the suffering of others make them feel good about themselves as better human beings? Nobody is better than the other. We think when we come to grips with those realities, we'll humble ourselves, we'll respect other people, we'll be kind to other people, we'll become generous with our knowledge, and we'll become a little more generous with our resources and become our brothers or sisters keeper. As far as I'm concerned, the key is given to us, even in the Holy Bible, that we should love God, but we should love our neighbors as ourselves. At least we should start to do so as human beings.
He also asked for your suggestions on how we can stamp out corruption.
To bring impunity into account. If you don't punish corruption, you give people lessons to be corrupt. So there's need for us to bring impunity into account. And there's a need for us to be selfless. I had a conversation with one of my friends, some of my friends some time ago, and I asked an unconventional question. And I said, which of us is willing to take power in Liberia and come out of power poorer than we did? And there was laughter and no response. But the day in which we have a young man or woman that has that kind of mentality set, that they're not going into power to enrich themselves, then we'll be on the road stamping away corruption. Because Liberian people say the fish get rotting from the head, or there's a parable that says that the fish gets rotting from the head. You know, if you are not a leader with corrupting influences, it is possible for you to ensure that your followers are penalized and punished when they get corrupt or corrupted. So it seems to me that it is a question that requires a complex answer, but it must begin with ourselves, our surroundings, our friends, our communities, the community leaders, the chiefs, and everybody else. It is a whole national campaign that is required. It seems to me, sincerely, there is no one individual in Liberia that can fight corruption decisively. It requires cooperation, it requires solidarity, it requires a national plan. But in the main, my view is that when we begin to bring impunity into account, we can reduce corruption. Corruption must be punished as the first order of business.
There's a question from Facebook by Methuselah W. Doe. He said, the progressive did not project to accelerate the socio-economic development of the country. That is why we are at this stage period.
So
we are here because of the progressives.
So it means that when you are progressive, you have the obligation and the authority to project the socio-economic development of the country, and that even if you're not in power, it ought to be implemented by governments that are in power. I disagree with that question, in the direction of that question. I think it is a disservice to the progressive movement. It is a mischaracterization and misrepresentation of the aim of the progressive organization in Liberia.
All right, your voice was low. Now we have another caller on the line. Caller, your name and where you calling from.
Oh, my name is George Pator, and I'm calling from the state of Montana.
George, welcome to Focus on Liberia. Your question or comment?
Okay, so I have both of them, but one will eventually end up into a question. I just want to greet my senior comrade, Professor Alaric Tokpa, and to also wish him very well. I'm very happy he's conducting some of our important pages in history.
Thank you.
What I would like to talk about is what will we say to people? Because one of the things that we talk about is the opportunity to make the changes that we have all talked about in the past. When Dr. Sawyer was interim president, and when Madam Salih became president, I would think among all the other times that have come and gone by, these were two eras in which probably the progressive would have done something great as far as good governance and even laying the foundation of good governance. So what do we say to people who say that, you know, we just talk the talk, but we don't walk the walk?
Prof. Tokpa, your response.
The progressive community is heterogeneous. It is not necessarily a homogeneous whole. Amos Sawyer is one of the most brilliant or political scientists that we have in Liberia. He can answer for himself. Alaric Tokpa is Alaric Tokpa. I'm head of the NDC. If the question is directed to the social democratic movement, I can answer for us. I was not a part of Ellen's government, so I'm hardly able to explain myself in regard to the activities of that government.
Right, but the progressive, we know the people that are progressive in Liberia. So if they are in government and they are not performing, it brings into question the whole progressive movement. I think that's the background George is coming from.
Are people born as progressives? It is your activity that make you progressive.
So people can fall out of being progressive.
I do not want to be judgmental about other people.
Okay. All right, George, thank you. Thank you. You have a follow-up?
Yes, I do have a follow-up.
Okay.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Okay, briefly.
And I know very well that the brother has tried to be very mindful in the past as to who he aligns with or which government he works for. I guess the issue is not just questions specifically to his role. I am more concerned about the overall analysis that he brings to this forum regarding the involvement of progressive. And I'm not talking about him being judgmental. I'm not even saying that progressive who joined this government have done anything necessarily bad in terms of corruption. I'm just looking at, you know, nationally, internationally, we have probably one of the best contacts in our cycle. And when you have the opportunity where a number of them are in the national legislature, you have them in the executive, you have them in the judiciary. And we still have, over this period of time, nothing. I'm just looking at him coming in with some overall analysis. I'm not saying these are things that he's personally responsible for, or they were failures or success that could be attributed to him directly or so. But right now, this forum is about throwing more light on what we can do better, you know?
Thank you.
Okay, if I should make a clarification then, I've never shied away from working for any Liberian government. But I think I have not been invited, and I think it is not necessary for me to impose myself or put fire on an arm and beg any government for a job.
No, you do apply, not beg. No. Have you applied?
Sorry?
Have you applied? You are not begging for a job, but have you applied to any government for a job?
There have been negotiation processes that didn't work.
Okay. There were some key progressives.
Sorry? So what I'm saying is this.
Go ahead.
When a progressive community enters a government, I think there's need for framework of collaboration. My experience, even in recent times, is that other forces, mainly conservatives and liberals, have the tendency to want to cooperate with progressives because they know the power of the progressives in mobilization processes and attachment to the grassroots. But usually, they organize and compose the position in such a way that it relegate progressives to the background at the banquet of victory. They only want the support of the progressives, but they do not want the input of the progressives in critical policy making and implementation. And mind you, whoever you are, if you work in the executive bureaucracy, you are subject to order. If you are not aligned with them in terms of principles, policies, and practice, you can be deprived of resources.
Yeah.
You will not implement, you will not conduct your work in accordance with the expectations of the people in ways that will be at least commendable. The best place for progressives to go in transition periods like this, because Liberia, I think, is still in transition. They profess to fight the war for democracy. We have not yet democratized. Therefore, progressives go into the legislature. But even in the legislature, you have a situation in which you are overwhelmingly in a minority.
Yeah.
You are forward thinking, which means that you may have to cooperate with your colleagues for some time or for whatever reason or the other. If you stand up as one who is critical of the executive branch of government, I'm informed by those in the legislature today, your district or your county is deprived of resources or development processes, and it compels you therefore sometimes to succumb. This is incorrect. This undermines our democratization process. It is understandable to me then that you achieve one and the same result. If you are in, you possibly are in to better your own situation. If you're out, you're deprived of resources. But our concern as social democrats, wherever we are, is to serve the interests of our people. So it makes no sense to me to even be in government of any kind and take any lucrative position if I'm not in a position to impact the lives of my people.
Some key progressives were part of the government for the past 12 years. And I can name some names: Dr. Sawyer, Mr. Wisse, Flomoya, Dr. Formula, and the rest of it. During those 12 years, obviously they were quiet, as opposed to the years under President Doe. Do you think their quietness for the past 12 years casts any doubt on their objectivity when they start to speak now? Not just them as individuals, but some of the progressives that were in government that were at the table. Now, if they are not at the table when they are talking, how can we believe them?
I will be blunt with you. Nobody is born as a progressive. So people struggle in different ways. I cannot totally answer for the way in which other people struggle. But I know that it's my responsibility to continue to struggle in the interest of the Liberian people, particularly the poor people of that country, the grassroots.
Alex Divine is on Facebook saying he agrees with you when you said that to punish corruption, we got to stamp out corruption, the crime is to be punished, and that's going to, so he agrees with you. But let's come to some current issues. And top on the agenda is the June 7th protest, which the caller spoke about previously. I watched your video in support, the NDC in support of the June 7th protest. So on Focus on Liberia, state your position clearly on the June 7th planned protest to save the state.
I'm clear that I'm in support of the June 7th protest. I'm in support of the need for the people of Liberia to express their dissatisfaction with the current state of affairs. It is important for us to allow that to happen, because if we don't allow that to happen, we don't know other agencies that will mobilize our people in different directions. My concern is that we must ensure the stability of the democratic state. We must ensure peace. The New Deal movement and the Free Democratic Party, who are key parties in the Social Democratic Party that we've organized as the National Democratic Coalition, are signatories to the Accra Peace Accord. So it is very important for us to ensure that we do not erode the gains of the democratic process. But not to erode the gears of the democratic process does not mean that we should not recognize the constitutional right of our people to express themselves and their anger. The state, the government, has to become active in engaging the organizers of that demonstration who have promised that they want a peaceful demonstration, that they have demands that will have to be put forward. I'm not convinced that the government as constituted is capable of exclusively leading Liberia effectively and efficiently. So I think there's need for reforms in that government. There's need for a reduction of the arrogance. There's need for us to ensure that at least we squeeze out those policies and programs that are implementable, that are practicable, that are reasonable, and talk to the Liberian people to understand the new direction in which we are moving as a people. Despite our differences, it is possible for us to organize ourselves in such a way in the interest of country that we can do more and more democracy. The way to save the state is to democratize the state more and more. But the democratization of the state is never possible if you don't attack hunger, if you don't attack the health crisis, the educational crisis, the unemployment issue. So it is important for us to realize that the government is ignoring the obvious. When the people rise, it is a core attention of the government to the obvious. If the people are generally satisfied, why would you think that anybody whosoever is able to mobilize them to come in the street? Have you not understood that Liberians are very peaceful and humble people? Yet, they are a battle-tested people. So one should not take them for granted or overlook them.
But are you convinced what you have expressed is the same objective of the protest organizers?
I wouldn't say. However, I'm convinced that when we get to the table, we are able to put the best interests of our people forward. That is what we need to be on the table as social democrats. And
I listened to your press conference, or no, your position statement, and I could read that you were somehow skeptical of the organizers. You did not want to say that they could be the actual torchbearer of this protest. So why were you not so at ease with those heading the protest?
Our position is unambiguous. But even though we are impatiently patient, we are not neglecting the lessons of history. What we have done in our country is this. We have not yet understood that the silent heroes, the people are the makers of history. We have not understood history from below. We are always seeing history from above. And that is a mistake. There is no critical turning point in our country when the people themselves do not intervene to make change to happen, or at least to make it possible for people to rethink their position in the society. Yet, peace and democracy have continued to be elusive. Elite democracy that puts people online and give people big jobs who do not pay attention to the interests of our people is not what we're talking about. As social democrats, I repeat, we are talking about a combination of social and political rights, or political rights, civil and political rights, with social, economic, and cultural rights. We're talking about economic justice. If this is not addressed, our democracy is incomplete.
You should also know that there are people who have concerns about those that are heading the protest. Some of them, according to others, were people that committed atrocities, allegedly committed atrocities. Some, they do not think that they are capable, or they are the ones to be calling foul on anyone else because of their own past records.
Those views should not be ignored.
Right.
Those views should not be ignored.
So why should good people piggyback on people who have such history of violence?
If it is possible for any alliance to constitute a position in the interest of our people, I think we should not hesitate. But we have to ensure that it works in theory and in practice. Let me say this. Times have changed. The same harsh tenures to which Joshua is being held, Joshua administration is being held. It is the same harsh tenure to which any future government is to be held. And that is why some of us are in the progressive community consistently. Because if it applies to Mr. Weah, it must apply to anybody else that come over as president in the near future. So it is not a piggy-banking situation. As far as I'm concerned, the Radio Talk host, Henry Costa, who has been a member of the CDC before, who raised a concern of the need to save the state in the face of this movement. We've had conversation with him, and we are concerned that anything that goes down continues to be in the interest of our people, who are the main actors, who are the main makers of history.
We have a caller on the line. Tell us your name and where you're calling from.
My name is Dr.nya.
Say that again.
My name is Dr.nya.
Orlando, your question or comment?
It will be like a little comment and a question. So, listen, Comrade Alaric Tokpa, I just want to give some short little bit something for the reminder, for the Comrade, when the music movement came to be in the 1997, 1998. I was a young comrade at the time. I was recruited by the New Deal movement. And at the time, we have like Comrade King Andrews, we have Comrade Henry Whitty, Odigawa at the University of Liberia, Comrade Kofa, all these guys at the time they were based in the West Point area. And as a young comrade, were recruited. When we applied with the chairman of the New Deal movement, all his chairmanship, the New Deal movement were accredited under the President Taylor administration.
Right.
But my concern, I just want to give that history a little bit to the same comment. The New Deal movement came to be a ready force, at the time. And most of the time, at that time, you found like a young comrades was, were trained and talked to. But right after the Taylor administration, with all of the thing, when the Leave administration came in, and this is his question and the comment, to the same comment. For the 12 years under Madam Sali, those names at the time, like Comrade Tokpa, Alaric Tokpa, and a few of the, let's forget about the progressive and all the kind of thing that the guys in the 70s and 80s. But for the 12 years, we found that there are massive corruption and looting, of our country resources and money that is given to the Madam Sali administration. But in this year, is Alaric Tokpa for 12 years. For 12 years, we didn't hear Alaric Tokpa coming out to speak on major critical issues in our country. We didn't hear for 12 years.
Okay.
To the extent that it led our economy that is down to its belly knees at this moment as we speak. Now we are feeling the pinch of the economy of the Madam Sali administration. And from Tokpa was around and other guys.
Thank you.
Why then, at the time, issue was not raised to continue this particular situation and we went into this path. Why now? Comrade Tokpa.
Prof. Tokpa, why now? Or what is your history of advocacy during the Ellen Johnson Sirleaf presidency?
If you allow me to, I can provide Jai with some information subsequently to send to you. And so you should please find time to give him your contact. Number one, as a vice presidential candidate, I protested the inclusion of Ellen Sirleaf on the ballot because I believe then that warlords or supporters of war should not be allowed to participate in election. In the second round of election, the young people of the New Deal movement came to me and asked, what side should we support? United Party or the CDC? And I said, neither of them. They said, why? You don't want to us say, whenever we are engaged in a situation where there is severe war, we should take side. And you gave us the reason why we should do so. Why you say now we should not take side? I said, because you all have already taken side. If I say you should get on the other side, it will be a mandate and we have to penalize those who will not come there, but it will be a violation of our constitution. So we need an emergency meeting. In that meeting, we decided that anybody could take any side they want, but after the election, they should come back to the New Deal movement. On that basis, party leaders and party stewards came together and decided to oppose Madam's leave. Our logic at the time was that she was going to be bringing back the old true party style of governance. So I did stand up. And the New Deal movement was the only institution under, I can say I was not a chairman at the time, but as foreign chair, the respect is giving me a whole lot. I wrote a document called It Is Us Versus Them. Today's day, many journalists continue to ask me about that document. And I tell them to research it. Now, because of that document, I was neglected, or I can say I was isolated under the early government, much more than that. While the higher advocacy is here, they found a way to bring a president down. The NDC is on record under my chairmanship of writing the legislature of that country. Each member of the House of Representatives received a copy of that letter. Each member of the House of the Senate received a copy of that letter. And the President pro tem, the Speaker, they received copies of that letter. We'll follow up, but they didn't act. We call for the impeachment of Ellen Sirleaf. And we did that and provided all the constitutional violations that she made. The media has been unkind in some instances. We've had situations in which you call media people, you pay them in accordance with their expectation or so, just for them to put forward your views, but they neglect to do so, either because they're being paid higher money by the government or because the media has been purchased. In some cases, therefore, freedom of the press has been freedom of the rich to make their views heard in Liberia. I confronted some media people about that before. Now, this new may not have gotten out as much as they ought to have, but yes, we systematically confronted the early regime. In fact, it was the NDC that in fact put an injunction on the elections in 2014.
All right. Hold your thought right there. Let's hear from a caller. Caller, your name and where you calling from.
My name is Prince and Sharif.
Prince, your question,
Yes.
your question or comment?
Well, it's a comment.
Go ahead, please.
All right. I want to thank the Prof for, grazing the invitation to be on this platform. This is my comment. The Prof is one person that some of us have followed closely. Their activities in Liberia relative to politics. And I must say on this platform that even though there are some issues that we will differ with, but these are people that we closely follow and we admire some positive of them. And I want to say thank you so much, Prof.
Welcome, thank you.
This is my concern. A student who has read history and have also extensively been involved in the political atmosphere of Liberia and with the world, have observed that when people want to make the necessary change or the necessary changes, they always start from the foundation, because when the foundation is not adequately built on a solid soil, at the end of the day, what you will do to stabilize the building it will never yield any good result. I'm saying this to mean that Professor Tokpa is one person that we admire as young people from the 80s, with the progressives. These were people that tough issue. I remember during the administration of Tolbert, even the late President Samuel Kayadu, they stood for the cause of the people in their ideas at the time. They propagated messages that the Liberian people needed at the time, relative to good governance, relative to fighting corruption, nepotism, etc., etc. But our disappointment was that when the opportunity was given to the same all progressives or the members, of that particular progressive that propagated the idea of, of good governance, unfortunately, they let us down. What do we mean? Look at the governor of Madam Ellen Johnson-Sirleaf. Madam Ellen Johnson-Sirleaf and the prof, along with so many others, all of them were in the vanguard of propagating those good messages to our people. But unfortunately, when they were given the opportunity that they should have made the necessary correction and make the foundation to be solid for the future generation, it was unfortunate that our fathers, people who we look up to, who we put our life down, and we remember 1979, we jumped in the street as innocent students who didn't even understand. Unfortunately, these people, they let us down. I just want to say on this platform that, Prof, we believe that where Liberia is, it is at a critical juncture. And Liberia is in need of every one of you positively to the development of Liberia.
Thank you, Prince. There are a lot of callers coming in. So
Okay, I just want to end on this note.
But I agree with him.
To you.
Okay.
I agree with him.
Okay, that's good. But we all need to come together, especially those of you who have been in this issue for a very long time, come and put in around this government so that we can achieve and that Liberia can be better. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you, Prince, and thank you for your comment.
And the reason why I agree with him briefly is that when the administration of Dr.nya was elected to head Liberia, there was a meeting of Social Democrats, and we decided that individually and collectively, if we are calling, we should serve our people. That opportunity was being searched by as many of our guys as possible. And I think this is a perfect occasion on which all Liberians, besides us, if we are calling good faith, efforts should be made to make sure that we bring some stability to our country, but I think we bring some efficiency and effectiveness to governance.
Right. I believe that too, that those need to be open to invite people so that we can all sit around and put hands together to move the country forward. But here is my take, and there was other callers coming in about the organizers. There's a video going around about Henry Costa, one of the organizers of the Save the State, that is threatening violence. Let me see if I have if I can play that for you so you can hear your comment. I'm saying this to say, hold on.
I swear to my mother, Sarah Burton, but I'm telling you, I'm hiring some people who have knowledge and expertise in using guns. People will die, and they will die at my instruction. I will tell you people very clearly. We are going to use some better rules for the individual people. Nothing to look down.
Just hold on, Colin.
Everything that we can raise money to put radio station back on the air, we can raise money for a lot of other things. And if you think I'm joking, you try me. I will take this fight to you. I'm coming to Liberia. You will see. Henry Pedro Costa will be back on. I will be back. Come back. It will not be easy. It's their bodies you will find. You will have to send for their bodies. Because when I come to Liberia, I will be armed and protected. What the hell is this? I have people who believe in me to follow me.
We have another caller on your line. Call your name and where you're calling from. I was just playing the clip from Henry Costa, so the professor can respond to that after the caller. Caller your name and where you're calling from. Obed, your comments or question?
I'm starting here and listening to most of your callers who challenge Professor Tokpa's support for the June 7 protest. But what they are not telling us, even though they disagree with the protest, is how we can handle the problems that we are imposed upon the country. You do not want the protest. Well, how do you resolve the 16 million process? How do you resolve the 25 million process that we are itself? Special investigator issue, they are getting the report, but he's not doing anything about it. How do you handle those processes? We are essential so his first test that people want to go on with a report. He promised the Labrum people that those who are accused of committing such a crime will face before the law. When he got his report on his desk, he has not done nothing about it. This is the man who declared that his ministers should declare their assets under the executive order. It has not happened.
So Obed, before I want you to expand your Obed. I'm giving you the time, but I just want to expand your thought. So why do you think, or how do you think that this protest is going to resolve the issues that you are talking about? I just want you to include that in your comment.
Because when the protest happens, we do not get a list of actors that the protest is about. That's just happening. Because people are just satisfied. But this protest is very unique. It's not even a protest. They get a list of actors that they want we are to address. So when you look at the list of actors, they are actually helping we are managing government well. So now we have to pressure them to make sure that these actors are implemented. That they investigated a crime and he said they're going to punish the people, and he's not doing that. So number one on our list was we have to make sure that those who stood to the family are prosecuted. How is that a protest? Because we said to the people that you are found guilty in this report, you will be prosecuted.
Yeah.
That's
fair enough.
This is what we want you to do. We want you to follow what you say. So how is that a protest? That's not a protest. And what I want to say is that guess who does not want this to happen? How do we get answers for the 25 million? How do we get an answer for the government report? How do we get answers for the 16 million? Why is it that we are having a resignation saying it's a president? And why these things are happening? So these are pressure groups. I call this people pressure group. I'm not calling protesters. I call it pressure group. The pressure we have to answer to some of these things. How is that a protest?
Thank you. No, that's fair. Thank you so much. And you can take your answer up there. Prof. Tokpa, people are saying, oh, okay, we don't support the protest. Obed is saying, how else do they want this issue resolved?
I've been clear about my attitude towards the protest. The protest is necessary so that the government can understand that people are dissatisfied. Yet, I believe it is possible for all of us, in spite of our differences, to come together and carve a national program that we can all implement in the interest of the people of our country. Now, as the question of to the question of violence you're talking about, I am not a big fan of Facebook, so I do not always follow these conversations or commentaries. But if I read the context correctly, Costa was presenting some defensive posture, because I do know that his radio station was attacked, I think about twice. And that is unnecessary in our democracy.
All right. There's a voice here. We have a caller on the line. Caller, your name and where you calling from?
Yeah, my name is Andrew calling for Iowa.
All right. Please lower the volume of your radio or computer. Go ahead with your question or comment.
Yeah, I have something to say, and then I would like to have the professor later on. My brother, it is true that we as young people that come out in Liberia and go to the opportunity to leave the country, we have the opportunity to develop our mind and our way of doing things, so we can see how best we can go back to to our country to educate our youngest brothers and sisters who coming up too. But in our country right now, the problem we have in our country is not derived from George Manoya. The problem we have in our country is from those who keep our country independent today. In the sense that if we have one currency system in our country, we Liberians, we are not going to face the kind of problem today in our country. Because we're using two different currencies. My brother, look at Ghana. Our in Ghana and our in Africa. Our little, when war entered in Liberia in 1990, I was born in 1990, October 24th. I grew in Africa and see the way the people country is developing. Ministers are taking pay in their own currency. All government officials taking pay in their own currency. And before you become minister or representative in Africa, brother, you have to do background check. And you have to have jobs that you provide for your people. But you see today the problem we're facing in our country, because after the war, we did not come together to decide to see how best those who all take part in the war to put stop to them, not to take part in our country election. We did not put stop to it. And now we allow those who kill innocent people, who rape innocent people, who destroy our country today. Some of them, they are in power. Some of them get money. Some of them using their money today, they say they want to put people on the street. These are the problems we're facing. And we'll continue to face problems over and over. We'll continue to use two currency in our country. Why we can't come together? Why our government officials, our lawmakers, our senators, they get this star and put them on the table. It's time for the brother to develop. It's time for us to take pay in our own currency. Then we will see our country will go forward.
Thank you.
We'll stop using US in our country. And my question has to do with the June 7th protest. The professor said he backing the people who want to protest. And now for me, I disagree. 2011, when our internment I know what went on. When students get on the street, they said that we were demanding.
So just wrap up. I want to bring you another caller. So you disagree about the protest?
Yeah, I disagree about the protest because
let me take another caller. All right. Thank you so much. All right. Anyway, call out your name and where you calling from.
Well, I am calling from Pennsylvania.
Your name?
Alan Jr.
Alan, go ahead with your question or comment.
Okay, the problem you just mentioned that Henry Costa was using threatened remarks. I think the brother who said that Henry, because I listened to him the very day he was speaking, based on previous attacks that he had received, and he was using defensive statement that I am coming to Liberia. Let me see the man that will come and say he's going to take my life. Henry Costa was saying those things. He said he was ready to face them. He did not say he was carrying war to Liberia. I just want to make the clarification.
Okay.
So whosoever is putting this on the social media to destroy the effort on June 7th in a peaceful demonstration, that person is lying. That's a pure propaganda. Not right.
Okay.
We have seen things happening in Liberia. They have killed people. We have seen police. We have seen even funeral home. There is somebody in the night time. They said they were sent by the government.
Thank you. Just wrap your comments up. We are drawing down the curtain soon.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Prof. Tokpa, we have the issue of Henry Costa. We also have the other caller say we are using two currencies and we have warlords in government that are using their money now. Your response.
Not only did I oppose the participation of Ellie in the government, I remember we took Alaric Tokpa to the Elections Commission and said that he was a warlord, he should not participate. The Election Commission ruled in his favor. You understand me?
I remember that.
So then, the question of Costa has been clarified, and as I said earlier, if I read it well, because I'm not a big fan of Facebook, I don't follow these commentaries very well all the time. He was adopting a defensive posture because his radio station was attacked, and this is one of the problems of this government. You don't attack everybody. You don't attack the media, attack the students, attack opposition politicians, attack everybody who expresses a critical view of voice and this and that. Who are you?
Right.
So I don't think it's correct. Somebody has said that WEA is not the problem. WEA is part of the problem.
Right.
He must identify that. If WEA is not a part of the problem, may I ask, what prevents him from ordering a critical review of the past?
Right. No,
this is where the policy difference emerges immediately when he takes power. I think he's not correct in that regard. It can still be done. We have to review the past critically. If we have to rebuild the foundation, we have to go back to the basics.
Definitely.
What is the source of the problem? So we all consider as patriots and address it. We got to rearrange our whole bureaucracy, the philosophy of education. The manners and functions have to be reviewed. If the manners and functions of the agencies of government and ministries are not correct, they can be redefined. But if they are okay, they'll work hard about the implementation problem.
Exactly.
Personally, one of my main responsibilities is to give theoretical tool to the growing intelligentsia for struggle. So whether I'm in government or out of government, it will not change anything.
You continue to provide the tools. I will ask you after this caller that you once called Judge WEA a dictator, but let's hear from this caller and then we can combine that. Caller, your name and where you calling from?
Hello, my name is Ben. I'm calling from the state of Minnesota.
Ben, welcome to Focus on Liberia. Your question or comment?
Okay, thank you for the show. Okay, my question here goes to your host, goes to the whosoever. My question is about the protest, okay?
Yeah.
I understand. It's a people democratic right to protest, okay? But my question is, after the protest, what left?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. And before you go, so what the question was, so what else can they do if they don't protest to voice out their distaste of their displeasure with the government? What else do you want them to do?
I believe in dialogue.
Okay. All right. Let
them go on the table and sort out their problem. Liberia is not healthy for protest.
Thank you. Prof. Tokpa, your response.
If I disagree with the protests, if I take you on a tour of imagination, will that stop the protest? If anybody in their wildest imagination disagree with the protest, will that stop it? So what are the best issues of our people that should be brought to the table? Look, WEA was popularly selected, right?
Hold on 1 second. This looks like a long distance. Caller, where are you calling from?
Hello.
Hello, where are you calling from?
I'm Musa calling from the United Kingdom.
Right, that's why I look. Musa, your question or comment. Welcome to Focus on Liberia from the UK.
Thank you very much, Dr. I just want to make a comment. The fact of the matter, we all follow him on Facebook, and he stated that because the government has failed to provide security for his station, when we come to Liberia, he will be his men to protect, to give the thing about to protect his stomach. He did not say I'm going to tell war to Liberia. These are all clear cases by the government. I think the problem of Liberia is our president. Georgia has said to educator, you fail to speak to the Liberian people, while our people are suffering. We can only speak to the citizens. much.
Thank you so much. Prof. Tokpa, and we are slowly drawing down the curtains, but your response.
Well, yes, indeed. I think that it is important for the people to express their dissatisfaction, but I think that it is important for us to collate the views of the protest movement and put it forward to government for negotiation and dialogue so that we can move forward with that. You said that I call we are a dictator.
Correct.
I'll be bold to you say that yes, I did. And as I was crying in my heart. Do I still believe the same today? All of you eyes they can see. They have ears they can hear. And I invite anybody to agree and disagree with me. And I will not make any further comment in defense of my position, because what I said that he was a dictator, I explained the reason why.
Thank you. One little thing on current issue I want us to talk about is this consistent message about American Liberians or Congo and native divide, and that that's a problem in Liberia, or tribalism as a whole. In your speech or in your position statement from the NDC, you refer to the American Liberians native divide as a so-called or something that is maybe manufactured. There was I think the Deputy Minister of Information was suspended because he tried to talk about that same or kind of promote a Congo country divide. How do you see it?
I think the timing of the minister's intervention, his approach, was the problem. Because you cannot ignore the fact that there are divides in Liberia, including the Congo and country. But what we suggest as social democrats is that it is not a fundamental divide. The fundamental issue is the oppression and exploitation of our people. It is a class question. Whenever the minority dominates the majority, there is collaboration from the majority. Besides linguistic and cultural factors are defining elements of ethnicity or cultural categories, the mentality issue is there. There are some country people who are more Congo than the Congo people themselves. And there are some Congo people who might be more country than country people themselves. It should be taken on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah.
Nevertheless, it is a situation that should not be ignored, because there is a certain category of people who have an entitlement mentality. They think they have a God-given or birthright to control power in Liberia, enjoy the national resources while other people suffer. As we said in the All People's Freedom Alliance APFA, the situation of yesterday is still the same today. That is why we class all these governments as part of the same regime. There is no difference. Going back to the foundation and the basis has been suggested is to find a way to clean the state from the beginning to now. It is not possible for us to ignore the fact that some people will become arrogant about their cultural origin and their standards or customs with which they try to judge others by their preconceptions and what have you. But the fact of the matter is that times have changed. It is my thinking that nobody whosoever is able to preside all Liberia and behave as a dictator in the 20th century. It is my thinking that anybody after the WIA administration that comes to power will be held to the same high standards or higher standards than even WIA himself. And that is what it means to me to save the state, to ensure that at least some of the issues of the state of security be addressed, as opposed to what I'm talking about, the state of security as opposed to the security of the state. the issues of employment, the health crisis, education, agriculture, the food crisis and what have you, the environment, environmental degradation and the way in which it is affecting our farming communities and the depletion of our rainforests. Those are all issues we have to pay attention to. The housing question, the way to ensure that at least some dignity is brought back to the young people who were deprived of education during the war years. Previous government have not paid much attention to all of that. Some children were deprived of parents. Some children were deprived of the opportunity to go to school. Very brilliant minds. They were discarded. Today they are in the street. Some of them of their own making, but most of them not of their making. So when you call, for example, for a war crimes code, people want to condemn you. So under what principle of law should 250,000 persons or more be killed with impunity?
Exactly.
In what system of moral philosophy can people be raped, displaced, sent into exile? Can babies and mothers be killed with impunity? Can innocent people be killed with impunity? If I can even ask, besides asking Liberians and women abroad, if I ask the Pope of the Roman Catholic Church, the Islamic community and other religious communities, the leadership of other religious communities, in what system of moral philosophy? If I ask the governments of Europe, Africa, and the United States, if I ask the governments of Asia and Latin America, under what principle of law, in what system of moral philosophy should this be allowed to happen in any country in the world? Anybody who have love for human beings in their heart will stand up for the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. That is why the Social Democrats in Liberia stand for it. And that is why the NDC stand for it.
Right,
As
but they have been go ahead.
Which I'm founder, was the only political party that welcomed the Truth and Reconciliation Commission was released in 2009. This matter was reported in the Daily Observer newspaper, if it can be researched. No other political institution did welcome the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. They will call for the War and Economic Crimes Court. And we're serious about that. Today, I stand by that as yesterday.
And that's been the problem, because not many people, not many politicians or political parties will explicitly say that they want the TRC implemented or a war crimes court. We also see that the cry for war crimes court has been louder now than it was during the past 12 years under President Sirleaf. What's responsible for that?
Honestly, there has been more awareness. There's been a lot of campaigning in recent times for this. And I believe that the more people get educated about their rights, the more people come to know that it's important for them to argue for redress and reparations and what have you, the more they get energized. There's another problem. A war can happen. That is the upsurge. But it ideally has to do with the fact that after the war, it's like much blood for nothing. Incidentally, human beings don't live very long. So there's a tendency for us to equate our political history or biographies with our human biography or longevity with political history. It doesn't work like that. In political history, in 500,000 years is less than 1 second. So you can see that if the issue was not addressed by some yesterday, some of us who saw it yesterday and raised it, people discarded us as the old usual troublemakers. If we who were affected by the war, our own human beings, our own families and relatives, near and far, who have very large extended families, we would noted that our people were forced to commit incest. Those people whose homes were discarded, who had nowhere to be today, who had no possibility of buying zinc to rebuild their houses, families that were separated. How can you say to us that there's no need to bring impunity into account? Any government that does not stand on the side of the people who were affected in the Liberian Civil War. It's not on the side of the poor people. Usually, the perpetrators of war, those who were in the administrations, the governance system, in the transitional periods and interim periods and what have you, did not necessarily live with the consequences of the action of the rebels and the warriors. It is our people that live with those consequences. I decided consciously to go back to Liberia in 1992 when others were running out from Liberia. And I spent all my time teaching at the University of Liberia when I was a younger person. Listen, at the time I was head of the political science department and teaching full time, my salary was about $20 US on the average. I never complained. And today there's no complaint in my heart. And many people read the political class in Liberia about what you can do for yourself. Those of us who do not amass wealth are considered failures. How can a man with knowledge-based wealth, how can a man with Jesus Christ on his side be a failure? The fact of the matter is that there's a new wave of intervention. We have trained enough people. We have galvanized, we have consolidated, and we're ready to intervene again in the Liberian political arena as a progressive community. We have allowed our people to see what the others could do. It was important in a way that Ellen came to power, firstly as a woman, in order to demonstrate that there's equality in the world between men and women.
Let me introduce something. Who are with you in this progressive community? Do you have some names?
I have institutions.
Okay.
The Free Democratic Party is with the New Deal movement. Our constituencies are very large. They may be silent today. We have in the diaspora many people that are cooperating with us. I don't want to go into personalizing. We have other national structures that agree with our policies. So we have a support base that is unstoppable. There's no way anybody can impose on our people and become unchallengeable.
Right.
We'll not allow it.
Because the progressives are losing elections after elections.
So it will help you to understand that elections are not the only determinants or are not the best determinants of effective and efficient governance or the ability to lead effectively and efficiently.
Right.
There are reasons why certain people win elections in Liberia. We have said over and over that the state has been criminalized and privatized. And those who obtain money from that process have monetized the electoral process deliberately. What happened in the Ebola era, for example, when I was running for the Senate? Why I'm in the Supreme Court in battle with the administration? The administration took some of that money and gave it to their preferred candidates in the name of fighting Ebola to go to the people in the countryside. Why providing them whatever resources they took with them, they were campaigning. As soon as they were clear that our campaign process was done and we knew what was happening, they declared there was need for election even before Ebola was over. And I lost interest in that election, of course, as a matter of fact. The head of the chairman of the election commission, who were in the Supreme Court, stood in front of Justice Banks, who was the justice in chambers.
And he's a progressive.
I do not know him to be so.
Okay.
And then he said to Justice Banks, or he announced that Mr. Alaric Tokpa will never win election in this country. And the justice in chamber asked him, do you know who are the people that win elections or not? We know there are flaws in the system. We know the process is rigged over and over. It is not everybody that the process is rigged against, but it is rigged against some people. Charles Batty, one of our cadres in River says, he won election clearly in a bad election. We knew that he was widely supported by the people of River says. He came to me and said, Chairman, all I need is a vehicle. I said, this is my car, take it. Take it to River says, you say any way you can. On the eve of election, he was in studio when the senator and superintendent marshal and took the microphone from him. In spite of that, he won the election in River says. The county process was rigged against him. The matter was taken to the election commission, which adjudicated in ways that were not satisfied. They sent us to the Supreme Court. We did not have money to sustain ourselves in the Supreme Court and to sustain our lawyer in the Supreme Court. So the Election Commission is one place that needs to be clean. We're talking about protests. There are bigger things that can happen in Liberia other than protests. It's some of the attention that are being raised and not given consideration. That Election Commission needs to be cleaned by the weird government.
Do you have intentions to run again?
What would you suggest?
You're very energized. Do you
Of course, indeed. Of course, indeed. As my colleagues in the social democratic movement, we have to run because we supported others that have not represented the best interests of our people. We have come to the conclusion that the best way to predict the future of Liberia is to design it ourselves. That is why our ideology is clear. We want political freedom, yes. We want democracy, but we want economic justice. That's our guiding principle.
I really don't want this interview to end, but it has to. Let's hear your final comments as we wrap this up.
As we move towards June 7, wherein organizers in the Save the State movement have decided that the Liberian people march to demonstrate their disagreement with some of the government policies and activities and express their dissatisfaction. I want to say that the National Democratic Coalition and NDC, the Social Democratic Party of Liberia, stand on the side of our people. Nevertheless, I'm appealing to the organizers as they have continued to pronounce over and over that all of us find ways, and I'm appealing to the Liberian government that all of us find ways to make sure that the demonstration is peaceful and that the demands of our people are put on the table for negotiation. In the event that the weird government is unwilling to implement those demands of our people, let the government have itself to blame eventually.
Even though that was your final statement, I have my last caller on the line. Call out your name and where you're calling from. Please be brief. You have 30 seconds.
Hello, this is Victor. I'm calling from Atlantic City, South Jersey.
Thank you, Victor. Your question or comment for 30 seconds.
Hey, thank you. I just have a brief comment. I want to thank my friend and brother for making time tonight to come on and help our younger folks understand what we've gone through today for our country and for what they're enjoying today. There is a lot that was put into the struggle, and I'm glad that he's on tonight to help spread the word. We continue to encourage our young people to take interest in what we've done for Liberia, but now that we're getting ready to pass the torch, they have to understand where we came from and help us take the country to where we need to take it. So I'd like to thank my friend and brother, Professor Alaric Tokpa, tonight for doing justice to the historical struggle of Liberia. And God bless you, my brother. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for calling.
Thank you.
Prof. Tokpa, there's a question here for me. Here, from Facebook, it says, it seems that I have beef with the progressive. Do you see it that way?
I do not think so.
Okay.
Firstly, the tradition of the progressive movement is criticism and self-criticism. And we'd like for people to be very critical about us, because I think we need to question our own assumptions over and over in order to position ourselves in a better way so that Liberia can become a better place for all, and so that Liberians can get the best that they deserve.
I want to thank you so much for taking this time to be with us and engaging in this conversation. We have plenty to talk. We want you to come back someday. We still have some unfinished business.
Thank you very much.
And we want to thank all our viewers from on Facebook and everywhere else. Thank you so much for joining. On behalf of my co-host, knuckles-guishard, my guest relations manager, Stephanie, and all the people that back us, all the people that we bounce ideas off, we want to say thank you so much for being with us, those that support us with cash and kind that continue to sustain this service. We want to say thank you so much. From all of us here at Focus on Liberia, we want to say good night and God richly bless you. Until then, so watch out for us. We're coming to you this Saturday and also this Sunday. Please be sure to tune in. Focus on Liberia every Sunday at 6 o'clock. Caller, we finish ending the broadcast. What do you say?
Hello?
Hello?
Yeah, this is where you forget about Mr. Jensen, Moses Jensen.
Mr. Chesson, what's your comment? Just 20 seconds.
No. I want you to schedule it properly. I want you to now get your number. We have not been communicating.
All right. Thank you so much.
Okay.
So to all of you, we say good night and God bless you. Thanks so much for tuning in. We're going to come to you this Saturday with the Green Liberia. And Sunday, we're going to have our cultural show. Good night and God bless.